It's magic, and I use that term very deliberately. It's a magical moment.
Yeah.
Just the same level of awe and just
awe and wonder,
respect for the magician who just did that in front of your eyes and led you around that merry-go-round and put you exactly where you needed to be for the perfect coalescing of information for your brain to just fire all the magical chemicals. It's just crazy. We have been wanting to do an episode breaking down what makes a great plot twist. And what has held us back from doing this topic is the video is just going to be full of spoilers.
It's all end of game stuff.
It's just spoilers the video.
Yeah. So if you're cool with it.
So we're going to have to tag things. Yeah. We're going to let you know right up front which things we're going to be talking about.
Okay.
So if you have not played these, then maybe watch out for it. They'll be marked so that you know when we're talking about this, and this, and you can skip around if need be. So we will be talking about Metal Gear Solid 2. We will be talking about Final Fantasy VII.
Now, the great news is that these games are older games. We are not spoiling anything, I think, from the last, decade.
If any of these games are games you have not played, just look at the timeline. It's broken up into its appropriate sections, and you can skip if you need to, or skip the video if you need to, because you haven't played these games. But we will be talking about major spoilers because we're breaking down the plot twists as examples of talking about what we think makes a good twist. I did a video on this a while back. So a lot of the points that I'm going to be making are kind of in the same vein. I think my thoughts have evolved a little bit since then, but there's what I think is a pretty apt comparison to the process of making a great plot twist, and that is to liken it to the sleight of hand of stage magic, of a stage magician.
Yeah.
So there's this great movie, if you haven't seen it, Christopher Nolan film.
Was it a new?
Called The Prestige.
Yes, The Prestige.
Have you seen The Prestige?
I have. Yes, I have. Once. Are we going to spoil that one?
I wasn't.
It's a good movie.
It's a really good one too, because it's not only that the movie has a great plot twist, but it's a movie about stage magicians and sleight of hand. And it's almost the perfect example of how these two things are similar.
It is the perfect example. Yeah.
So for that reason, maybe you should probably watch that movie too. But I'm not going to spoil the plot twist of The Prestige.
Okay.
I'm going to read some lines of dialogue from it that lend to this analogy and why I think it works. So there's a character. It's Michael Caine's character in the movie.
Yeah.
This was a novel first. The Prestige was a novel. But the character is John Cutter. And here's what he says. Every great magic trick consists of 3 parts or acts. The first part is called the pledge. The magician shows you something ordinary, a deck of cards, a bird, or a man. He shows you this object. Perhaps he asks you to inspect it to see if it is indeed real, unaltered, normal. But of course, it probably isn't. The second act is called the turn. The magician takes the ordinary something and makes it do something extraordinary. Now you're looking for the secret, but you won't find it because, of course, you're not really looking. You don't really want to know. You want to be fooled, but you wouldn't clap yet because making something disappear isn't enough. You have to bring it back. That's why every magic trick has a third act, the hardest part, the part we call the prestige. You bring it back again.
Yeah.
So if we're going to take those 3 stages, the pledge, the turn, the prestige, and apply that to it's almost built perfectly for a 3-act story.
It almost sounds like this is just an archetype of the human mind.
Yeah. You can apply this almost exactly to how you go about setting up a really good plot twist. The only difference is the stage magician will not let you know the secret. And the storyteller has to reveal the secret.
That's a good point.
And have it still awe and wow you.
Ooh.
So that's a little bit of a difference between the job of the mystery storyteller and the job of the stage magician. Stage magician doesn't let you know how dumb this actually is and how easy and simple it is.
Which often
the writer has to reveal that and have you feel, oh, it was right under my nose all along. I should have seen that coming.
Yes.
Wow, how clever.
And have it still carry weight. Yeah, have you still appreciate it even after discovering often the simplicity of the trick.
Yeah.
Is also beautiful, right?
That's true.
Now the magician never wants to reveal it, and oftentimes, yeah, it's really lame. But sometimes you know, people will get their own ideas of how the magician did the trick, right? But often there's actually a really beautifully simple like explanation for how the trick was done.
Yeah.
The magician will hide from you, but that's why it still works in a story, because even after the trick is then shown to you, the elegance of the solution can still be powerful, even in and of itself.
Penn and Teller have a whole TV show,
they're
like a
great.
game show,
Yeah.
where they essentially bring
I've seen some of that.
magicians on to fool them. So
Yeah,
it's
some
like
of those magicians are really good.
They try to guess
Yeah.
how the trick was done. They don't reveal it to the audience or anything, but they write it down and they go and they show it. And the guy says, you either, you got it or you didn't. You fooled us. And it's the same idea. It's like, how simple, how deceptively simple is this? And even someone who's a trained magician, can they pin it down? Can they guess? And sometimes even they are thinking of all the ways you could maybe accomplish that, or maybe overthinking it to some degree or something.
That's a great show, by the way.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, it's really good how they analyze that stuff.
Yeah. So anyway.
And then also, David Blaine used to have a show on TV, and there was one episode of that show that I watched, this maybe almost 20 years ago, where he went to somewhere, I don't know where it was, maybe South America or Africa or somewhere where he didn't speak the language, and he was doing magic with them, but without being able to communicate, right? And he was talking about how difficult it was. And I remember seeing a few of the tricks that he did with like children from the village. They all kind of came around to watch, and he couldn't do a setup the way he normally would. But what he did do is he had like a bunch of cups on the ground, and he started like hiding quarters, and it's the exact same thing you're talking about, where the people are very surprised when they see, oh, where did the coin go? It's missing. But they don't clap yet. It's not enough. Like there really is something, even amongst people who have never really seen this type of trick done before. They are impressed that it happened, but there's nothing that resonates with them yet. That's something they just witnessed, like something really special or cool, until he then reveals where they went and he reintroduces it back. And then everyone goes crazy and they all go up to grab the coins and they're all like looking at him like, how did he do it? And it's really fun to watch that. But when you take language out of the equation, you still see the same structure, and the crowd, everyone acts the same way. Yeah. I actually thought about this too, because I was like Michael Jackson with his dance routines. He's got some really amazing dance routines that I was watching a while ago. This was years ago, and I don't even remember why. But I remember thinking like the moonwalk and the lean from Smooth Criminal, and like the stuff that he does they're all magic tricks. Like it's deceptive. It's, oh my gosh, how is he doing that? That's what makes it entertaining. And he's just dancing. He's not doing magic tricks, but he is doing magic tricks. Like secretly, he is just doing magic.
Right.
And without the magic tricks, and I've noticed this too, if you watch a lot of dancing or a lot of performances just in general, like Eddie Van Halen playing Eruption, like with like two hands on the neck and stuff. Like it's like, whoa, how is he doing that? Yeah, that's not how you're supposed to play the guitar. That's not how this works. Well, he's doing a magic trick, is what he's doing. Like basically a lot of art and a lot of the storytelling does kind of come down to performing a magic trick. That's something I never really even thought of before until a lot more recently.
Yeah.
Where I just kind of realized every form of art almost contains within it this prestige element in it, that just kind of that extra something that just makes it crazy, and that you are just filled with wonder. That could be it. It's the thing that fills you with wonder and awe of like that this almost shouldn't even technically be possible. How did you do that? Yeah. Right. And that's when people get excited and start clapping and jumping out of their seats, you know?
Yeah. So to set up where I think I want to go here with this conversation, I touched on just for a minute there, the difference between the author, the writer, and the magician is the author has to reveal the secret, and the magician does not.
Yes.
I call this the trail of breadcrumbs.
Oh, sure.
So it's like all the hints, all of this setup and foreshadowing that you're doing to what is really the truth is there, but you don't want your audience to see it.
Yeah.
You want there to be a trail they're following without them realizing that they're following it.
That's the trick.
This is where the sleight of hand comes in. A really good writer with excellent sleight of hand, like a magician who's just mastered the sleight of hand, the misdirection, right? Look here, not here. And I can just, whenever I want, the wave of my hand, I can make you look where I want you to look while I drop the crumb there and there and there. And it's like landing in your lap and you're not seeing it.
And you're not
because you're looking over here at this thing.
Yeah, because you think that's where you're supposed to look because that's where the magician is making all of the movement happen.
Yes. That is where a writer becomes an artiste, just absolutely masterful at what they do, is when they are capable of that kind of sleight of hand in their storytelling. Look here, I dropped it. Look here, I dropped it. Look here, I dropped it. And you will be able to, when you return to read or watch again, you'll watch the other hand now that you know what it's doing after I told you what I was doing with it and go, oh my goodness. Oh, wow.
Yes.
I can't believe I didn't see it.
So trail of breadcrumbs, I love that you use that analogy because it harkens to Hansel and Gretel.
Yes.
What I love is that it harkens to Hansel and Gretel, but actually the way the Hansel and Gretel story goes, it should be the trail of rocks that he's dropping.
Right.
Because the breadcrumbs get eaten by the birds. Right. But you enter into that story and then because if you said trail of rocks, nobody knows what you're talking about. You have to say breadcrumbs, but when Hansel is dropping the rocks, you can't see them until the moon comes out. And then they reflect off the moon. The beautiful thing isn't, necessarily how he did it or how he hid it from his mother or stepmother, depending on which version you're reading. It's the fact that once the moon comes up, which is the mysterious light of the night, right? That all of a sudden, when you look behind you, now you can see all the trail stuff illuminated, which you couldn't have seen before. That's just beautiful. I think that's really cool. When you can look backwards and see the trail, but not have seen it going forwards or at any other point until the mysterious light then shines its revealing, power onto the scene. You just don't see it. You can't see it. Like I've thought about this before too, because I've heard Penn and Teller explain how magic tricks are done before. Not specific ones necessarily, but just in general. They're getting you to look somewhere else, and then I always, if I'm watching magic, I always try to look where I'm not being expected to look. But there's one place that the magician is expecting me to look, and there are a million places that he's not expecting. It's not like, if he's doing something with his left hand, then look at his right hand. That's easy enough to do, I guess. But it's not always that simple. I know it's not always just like a 1 and 2 option, right? Sometimes he's doing stuff with his feet, he's doing stuff with his mouth. They're hiding things in all sorts of places. It's not just the hands necessarily. And you don't know when the magician is telling you to look at something, right? You don't know when it happens. Like my whole point is you don't know where to look until you know where to look.
When you know they're really good.
Until it happens, then you don't know.
The mastery of misdirection. Again, it's not thinking, look over here while I just use this hand over here.
I'm going to outsmart him and look over there.
That's not good deception.
Not how it goes.
It's bad misdirection.
Yes.
You have to also anticipate the people who are trying to catch you.
Yes, which is what I do now, and it's hard.
And
I never really can do it.
5 or 6 different feints or misdirections where they could look here, 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 or here, and any one of those would be a distraction.
And at which time point? At which time point? Am I always just looking at his left hand the entire time, no matter what he does? Like, I'm still going to miss so much stuff because a lot of the magic is done with the other hand.
Right.
Like, there is no way, unless you know the whole trick and how it's done, you don't know where it's important to look at which times. And basically you have no choice but to look where he tells you to look.
Right.
Unless you're just going to miss the whole thing and still not know how it was done, which is what happens to me now.
Yeah. So now, if we're going to apply that skill, like we're saying, we're going to take that and use that analogy over here. it is a very fine line to walk. And a lot of times you can go too far in one direction where you don't emphasize or put enough of a trail of breadcrumbs, and you get to the reveal and it's like, what? Like, that feels convoluted or contrived. That feels like you just pulled something out of nowhere that no one could have ever expected that or seen that coming. That wasn't foreshadowed enough to make sense in this moment.
Right.
The example I'm going to break down from Metal Gear Solid 2, not its really good plot twist, its other not as great plot twist.
Middle game plot twist.
Is an example of that to me.
Okay.
Where when they reveal the trick, it's like, that's dumb. That feels stupid. That feels contrived.
Yeah.
Even in the way they say it, it feels contrived. I think they say something like, we stole Liquid's body from some organization, and that's all there is to it. It's like, it's that kind of verbiage that just is like hand waving away something that should have been explained better, something that is really complex to execute. It's not just we just did this thing, and then we did it.
Yeah.
So that's an example of how you can go one direction with it where you're not setting it up enough. You're not leaving enough of a trail of breadcrumbs. Or you can telegraph it too much.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
We have, I think, a couple of times in the past few weeks on this show referenced the show Lost.
Oh, yes.
You told your whole story about your buddy, Jeremy. Yeah. You got in an argument about whether it's good or not.
Right.
And had a whole debate about it. And I think I had a few weeks before that referenced it as a show that does this kind of mystery in a way that I don't think is all that great.
Right.
And we had fans of the show who are here in our Patreon. And so for that reason, my wife and I finished another show that we had been watching, and she likes Lost, so we started watching it. And I've been through the whole first season, and I'm partway through the second season again.
Okay. Right back to where you were.
I'm not saying the Lost is a bad show. I'm actually enjoying watching it. And I think there's a lot of really good things that it does. And there's a lot of interesting parts to it. I'm just saying, on this side of things, which is a criticism I've levied in the past that I wanted to redress and see if I'm being fair, I still kind of hold to my previous opinion on it. But that being said, I'm really only trying to make the point that it's not easy to do it. I'm not criticizing Lost for being like terribly written. I think that it was as popular as it was and won as many accolades as it did for a reason. And it did something in television that we hadn't seen a lot before. It sort of like really changed the landscape of this like long arc of storytelling rather than like individual self-contained episodes, which was
right.
I mean,
it came
there
at a
were other
specific time.
shows that had done it before this, but I'm saying it was one of those shows in that time period. It sort of started taking TV in a different direction.
Yeah.
So it does a lot of great things. I think there's a lot of great characters there and some good stories, and it's a fun show to watch. I'm just saying, sometimes that line of are you being too subtle or are you being too on the nose is
hard to
not
walk.
a hard line that's easy to define and just work through. So it's tough. And so you're maybe you're watching this, you're an aspiring writer, you're trying to think, how do I build up to this plot twist in a way where I'm going to have that reaction I'm trying to get out of people.
Yeah. You got to know your audience, first of all.
Yes.
Because it's going to be different for each one.
I still enjoy, to this day, watching people play the original Final Fantasy VII for the first time.
Oh, yeah.
People who have not played it, and they're going back to this old retro 1997 PlayStation 1 RPG. They're playing it for the first time. And everybody who talks about Final Fantasy VII talks about the big spoiler of that game. And it's not the spoiler. Everyone knows it. Right. And it's also just, it's a big part of the theme of the story.
Oh, sure.
And it's a big part of understanding what it's trying to say about life and the sanctity of life. but it's not the spoiler that made my jaw drop to the
Right.
floor and just in awe of what the storytellers just did.
Right.
Partly because we spoiled it for ourselves.
I know, it's
by
true.
having the PC version and going into the file hierarchy of the game
Watching
installation
all
and
the-
watching the cutscene like video files.
Yeah, that was funny.
Having seen it and being like, oh my gosh, that's going to be crazy.
Can't wait to play that.
In part, I already knew that was coming.
Yeah.
So I wasn't surprised by that. But even still, I just don't think that's the real magical plot twist. I don't even call it a twist. It's just a crazy thing that happens. When you watch people see Cloud remove his Shinra helmet
Yeah.
and understand the context of what really happened at the Nibelheim incident and what his true involvement was there, that is one of the most well executed plot twists I have ever seen in anything.
Yeah, me too.
It's crazy how good, how well they concealed that truth, how simple it is as an explanation for his behavior.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
And how much they deceived you into thinking this other reality explained to you by the villain Sephiroth is the real one, and made you doubt the main character, who is an avatar for you, made you doubt yourself,
right? In
a certain sense, in the RPG sense, right?
Yeah.
And you can break it down into those three steps: the pledge, the turn, and the prestige. It applies perfectly to this game's
I think it does.
plot twist.
Yeah.
The pledge of Final Fantasy VII is Cloud is an expert former soldier who knows everything about Shinra and its inner workings, is an extremely capable fighter,
right?
Who is miles above everyone else in the party when it comes to knowing what they need to do next. That's why they adopt him as the leader. They all come ask him. This is part of the breadcrumbs I'm talking about and the misdirection. So in the pledge, they need to establish him as that.
Yeah.
I can believe what Cloud says when he talks about Shinra, when he talks about what happened 5 years ago, all of these things, because he's the expert here. He's been there, he's done that, he's seasoned, he knows what's going on.
And everyone else seems to, what he says and knows seems to jive with reality.
Yes.
Like when he says this, okay, that was true. Okay, he said this thing, that was true.
So that's the pledge. Yeah. That's what the writer needs to establish and make the player believe. Then we move into the turn, where we flip that whole thing on its head. The villain basically tells us he's not an expert. He wasn't there. He's a completely different thing than what you thought he was.
Yeah.
And in reality, it's this. He wasn't even there at all. We completely destroy his credibility. Nothing he says is true. You can't trust him whatsoever.
Right.
They need to also make you believe that is true.
Yeah.
For them,
just
the
like,
prestige
oh, what a
to
cool
happen.
Twist, right? Some people would say that's the twist.
That's the twist.
Yeah.
But then the prestige happens where you go, actually, no, with this and this missing piece of context that you didn't have, Sephiroth was lying to you, of course. He's the villain.
Right.
He's trying to manipulate you into doing what he wants.
What he wants, yeah.
And Cloud really was there. This is why you can trust what he's saying, with the caveat that it's not exactly what he claimed at the beginning.
It's not what you thought. In a lot of, in my opinion, it's cooler than you thought.
Yes, it's way cooler.
So you thought you knew the situation, and then it turns out you were somebody else, and this whole thing doesn't even make sense now. Who am I? And then it turns out, oh, you're even like more powerful. You're even cooler. You did something even more important than you even gave yourself credit before.
Yes.
That's the fun prestige part, right?
Yes.
Because a lot of people would just stop short at the twist, right? But in some ways, this is a 360-degree, almost like spiral outwards or something. It's not just a single twist. It's then a second twist, right?
Yeah.
That puts the world back up right again, except now you see Cloud as he truly was, which is even better as in he's more important than anybody thought that he was. He may not have been a soldier the way he thought, but he's more than just the soldier people,
Yes.
if that makes sense.
Yes.
He's beyond that, right? That is, it makes his character, it like cements him into like immortality Hall of Fame status.
Yes.
And every game company writer, director, person wants to do that. And there's a reason why they all haven't done it. It's hard to do. It's hard to make a believable character that starts out in one place and you have that initial twist where it's like, oh, it turns out you're the bad guy or the bad guy's the good guy or whatever most games. And they're just kind of, oh, that's it. That's the twist now, right? Now keep playing. But to put it back upright again, right? But even better, in an even higher place than you thought before. That's just hard to do. That's hard to do. There's a reason it hasn't been done that often successfully. And that's why you've really got to applaud. Like, stand up out of your chair and clap, even if you're alone in a room.
That's
because, like,
exactly how I felt
when
I saw that happen. And it's like the scene hasn't completed yet. It's still in the midst of revealing this. It's just the moment where the helmet comes off and you see him there and you just, all the breadcrumbs are like thrown back in your face. And you go, oh, wait. No, it all makes sense. No.
Right.
The scene's still playing out, but you almost can't pay attention because you're just like, oh, it's all coming together. The jigsaws are like forming in front of your face.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, it works. It works.
Yes, he was there. And
magic.
Tifa's, you start thinking back through the scenes and like, oh, Tifa's responses make sense now. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Or her lack of response.
Magic. And I use that term very deliberately.
Good.
In the analogy here, it's a magical moment.
Yeah.
Just the same level of awe and
wonder,
respect for the magician who just did that in front of your eyes and led you around that merry-go-round and put you exactly where you needed to be for the perfect coalescing of information for your brain to just fire all the magical chemicals. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
So let's break down each step in terms of this as an example of that, right? I'll come back to, well, let me start with the unreliable narrator.
Okay.
So I've gotten a little bit of kickback for using this term in a little bit more of a liberal sense than maybe it's like strict sense. The unreliable narrator in the strict sense is an actual narrator.
Right, like the voice of God.
The voice of God, the voice of the author writing the story.
Yeah, the creator.
Who is lying to you about something.
Yeah.
You're supposed to believe that person in the sort of, what do you call it? This is not the right term, but like the social contract.
Oh, sure.
Between you
it's
and
like
an
you've
author.
established trust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You are speaking to me in third person omniscient. You're telling me the truth. You're explaining this to me. Yeah. In a again, third person, non-attached, objective voice.
Yes. Yeah.
When someone changes that voice into someone who is unreliable, that is one sense or one way that, or I guess the strict correct way to apply the term unreliable narrator. I don't think that is where it begins and ends. I don't think that's the only way you can use an unreliable narrator. I believe an unreliable narrator can be a character in the story who is narrating about what happened in the past, and this is what happened, and you're meant to believe what they're saying because they have also been established as a person with credibility. A great example of this type of unreliable narrator is Obi-Wan Kenobi in Star Wars.
Yeah.
Obi-Wan Kenobi in the first movie, Star Wars New Hope, 1977, tells Luke Skywalker that Darth Vader betrayed and murdered your father.
Right.
We have zero reasons to doubt what he is saying.
Of course, yeah.
He clearly is, well, I mean, what's brilliant about this is he saved Luke's life right before this.
Right.
So he has come down, he's helpful, he's trying to be a mentor towards this youth. Yeah. He's trying to help him out.
Yeah.
He has demonstrated his goodwill already. So in that act of demonstrating goodwill, That's the first distraction, the
Right.
first misdirection. This is a person you can trust. He saved your life. He helped you. He's a kind, wizened old man. He has this kindly voice.
Yes,
A fatherly, uncle, paternal-like presence to him.
And he's nice to the droids.
Yes.
Right? He's nice to the droids. Well, Luke sometimes is rough with him, and Luke's parents are just like, take him back, sell him. They sold us a piece of junk. It doesn't even work. But Obi-Wan says, come here, my little friend. Yeah. Basically, he's like, these droids are my friends. So anyone who's nice to animals, or in Star Wars, nice to droids, is a trustworthy person.
A trustworthy person.
Speaking, yeah.
This is playing on our natural instinct to make assumptions based on certain things that we see. Right. We make assumptions about people, the way they look, the way they sound, the way they present themselves.
Right.
This person can be trusted.
Yeah.
You don't know anything about Obi-Wan.
Right.
If you really think about this, a guy came and helped you from Sand People and took you to his house. That's not enough
to believe everything he says.
To just start believing everything the dude says.
You're right. You're right. But the movie's only 2 hours long.
But he saved my life.
Right.
But he's nice. But he looks trustworthy. But he sounds trustworthy.
Yeah.
He's obviously knowledgeable. He fought in the Clone Wars.
Put yourself into the shoes of someone watching this in 1977.
Yeah.
The actor himself.
Yes,
right?
Alec Guinness.
He was a great, well-known actor.
Well-established.
Lawrence of Arabia.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So all of that contributes. That's all part of the initial misdirection, the first sleight of hand being done here. He's just going to slip this little line in, a breadcrumb. You're distracted by, he's nice and trustworthy. I like him. He's talking, and when he talks, I feel warm and fuzzy inside, and I believe him, and I want to be around him more. He's that feeling you get around your uncle when you're a kid and he's telling stories or something like that. Yeah. That's what's happening. It's a lull to then slip this little thing. He betrayed and murdered your father. There's just no way anybody in the audience would doubt that for any reason.
Well, Luke's father is dead. Well, we think. He's gone. He's living with his aunt and uncle.
Yes.
Or so he's told that's who they are.
Yes.
And no one else is telling us. It's almost like with the Metal Gear Solid 2 line from Cyborg Ninja. It's, you have no choice but to believe.
Yes.
What else? Who else killed Luke's father? No one else is offering you up information.
Yeah.
You have no choice but to believe Obi-Wan.
Right.
Yeah.
So then, pledge accomplished.
Yeah.
That's the pledge. The pledge was made. They made me believe Obi-Wan Kenobi's lies.
Yes. Don't believe
Obi-Wan's
Kenobi.
lies. You don't have Bosch running around through the streets of Mos Eisley. Don't believe Obi-Wan's lies. So because you don't have that, you believe.
Yeah, because not enough people. What is the meter you're trying to get up in that game?
Oh, it's called. It's the.
There's a word for
notoriety.
Notoriety. Yeah, the notoriety meter wasn't up enough. Yeah.
So, pledge accomplished. Right. The turn is when the villain Darth Vader tells him, "I am your father" in movie 2.
Right.
No one saw this coming.
Right. Yeah.
No one in a million years saw this coming.
Yeah.
But there were hints of it earlier in the movie with the discussion between him and the Emperor. He tries to say, no, we shouldn't kill young Skywalker. We should turn him instead. There's all these little things. Again, it's sleight of hand. It's misdirection. You're paying attention to freaking ugly looking Emperor dude. Who is this guy?
Yeah.
Or whatever else you're distracted by going on in the movie, special effects and you're just not paying attention because why would you? Why would I think otherwise?
You don't know where else to
Obi-Wan
look other than
and I believe him.
Yeah, right, yeah.
So when you get to that turn, it's devastating.
Right.
Oh my gosh, but it makes sense.
Right.
Now I'm looking back at some of those crumbs and that does make sense, and search your feelings.
Right.
You know that this is true.
You know it's true. Just based on the breadcrumbs, yeah, you can kind of feel it. You can look back and see all the stones glowing behind
it's there.
You. Yeah.
And then the prestige, of course, the bringing the father and son back together.
He then saves his son.
And and so like it's a little bit
and
of a
also,
different prestige. But
I've never loved this line. Maybe you can change my mind on this.
Bringing Anakin back is the prestige. He's back from the dead. So
yes, that's right. That's right. That's good. When Obi-Wan says, well, what I told you was true from a certain point of view.
Yes.
What do you make of that?
Yes.
Because I've never loved that line.
No,
where I'm like, you liar. Anyone can weasel their way. Oh, I technically told the truth.
Yes. Obviously, he was trying to protect him and in a certain way, maybe not maliciously, manipulate him.
Yes.
He wanted him to get involved.
Right.
He knew that I'm going to need Luke Skywalker to return balance to the Force. And he's not going to do that if he knows that his dad is Darth Vader. He's going to try to like get his dad to be good again.
Yes.
And I need him to kill his dad instead. Something like that.
Something like that.
So there's some manipulation going on.
Right.
And he's trying to weasel out of admitting that manipulation.
Right.
He thinks Darth Vader's too far gone for good reason. And
right. Well, that's why he uses the word murder. He says, your old father is dead. He's not just hidden away. He's not, he's dead. He's gone. He's gone forever. You can't get him back, kind of thing. Whereas what he's really saying is, metaphorically, this new version of your father did kill the old version of your father, and so I didn't lie. It feels a little weaselly to me, but
it is.
Yeah,
but it's not malicious. He was just trying to do what he thought it was best.
Oh, of course.
And it was a mistake, probably, but he was doing what he thought was best in his kind heart. Old man way.
Well, if he really did what was best, he would have told Luke that the only way to beat Darth Vader is to have the high ground. if you are even one step, if you are just one step above Darth Vader, the fight is over. Right? Why did he withhold that information from Luke? That's vital information, man.
Darth Vader had the high ground in their fight in movie 2.
He did. Well, remember
when he's walking up, he's walking up the
stairs.
Ramp. He had the high ground.
Luke won the fight.
Freaking fight.
But Obi-Wan forgot. See, he didn't share the memes. He didn't tell him the right stuff.
Okay, so we see the principle and how it's executed there. There's a in a very similar way. This is exactly what they do in Final Fantasy VII as well. So, in Final Fantasy VII, Cloud serves as both the main character and this unreliable narrator, right? So the pledge of FF7's plot twist is Cloud's first retelling of the events of the Nibelheim incident.
And what's brilliant is that, like you mentioned with Obi-Wan, how he's playing a sleight of hand. Cloud is not playing a sleight of hand.
No, he doesn't think he is.
As far as he knows, he is not being an unreliable narrator.
Yes. That's another part of the sleight of hand,
that's
like
part
you're saying,
of what
going
makes
on
it
here.
Even crazier.
I think one of the most brilliant things, too, is that the tutorial of the game, as far as how materia works, is given by Cloud.
That's right. That's true.
Barrett comes up to him, because Barrett's supposed to be the leader of Avalanche and the leader of these operations that they're pulling to destroy the reactors. And he doesn't like Cloud very much. They have a little bit of a... It's a little bit more than a rivalry. They're just kind of like not sure they can trust each other.
Right.
It's a rough life down there in the slums, and they're doing something really dangerous, and it's high stakes. So he begrudgingly is the one with all the materia and is managing the party. And he comes up to him and like, so
how do we use it?
could you teach me how to use this?
That's pretty good.
Right?
That's pretty brilliant. Yeah.
We're taking Barrett, this figure who is authoritative in one sense.
Oh, sure. Yeah,
even
absolutely.
he acquiesces.
Well, everyone else has to do what he says. He's clearly the one leading the mission.
And he's acquiescing ultimately to Cloud, because Cloud is more knowledgeable than me.
Right.
He's the one who really knows what's going on. He should be the leader. That's kind of the whole thing. Once you get out of Midgar, Barrett sort of realizes he wants to be the leader the whole time, but he realizes he shouldn't be. It should be Cloud. And he gives it up. Again, all set up, all misdirection for the Nibelheim incident.
Yeah.
Barrett acquiesces. He gives up the leadership role to Cloud right before you go to Calm and have him explain what happened 5 years ago. Who's the Sephiroth guy? What's going on with that?
Yeah.
Barrett had given up leadership of the party right before that happened. Here's who we should trust instead. Barrett's telling us, trust him.
Right.
Right? So, now there are crumbs laid in here, and they're mostly Tifa.
Yes, Tifa. But also, somebody shared, scroll up a little bit, somebody shared this image right here on our Discord, scroll up right there. Shy Guy shared this image, and everyone's looking at Cloud in that
And
image.
you're not looking here.
Even though there's something very interesting going on over there.
Yes.
But you're not looking there.
Yes.
You're looking
here. This image is perfect.
It's a very
as
good
an
image.
example of misdirection.
Yeah.
They make you look right. I'm going to put this on the screen and draw a
Yes.
big circle right here.
But why is the framing a little bit strange?
Why are you not looking
Yeah.
at this over here in the corner? Little lonely guy right here, very purposefully placed.
Yeah.
He's there, but we're not looking at him. We're looking at this. That's
It's
a
brilliant.
great, just like still frame example of
Yeah.
how well they executed this in this game. So he's acquiesced. The pledge has been delivered.
Mhm.
The hook has been
Set.
cast,
Yeah.
is set right
Yeah.
into us.
Yep. We don't even know.
Cloud gives his version of the events. We have no reason to doubt them.
Right.
Although Tifa does, on occasion, share some doubts. And those doubts
Yes.
grow, but they're not significant doubts. They're not overstepping that line of telegraphing.
No, she's just more like, oh, is that how it happened?
Yeah.
Question mark. Or something like that.
She's keeping
Which is a normal
some things
thing to
herself.
say. Like, oh, maybe I don't remember everything.
So, this goes on into the turn. So once the pledge has been accomplished, we need to work towards the turn. The turn is where Sephiroth is going to tell us the truth.
Right.
Of
And
what
it will
happened.
seem true because those breadcrumbs in the past seem to be pointing towards what
What he's
Sephiroth is saying as search your feelings, you know this to be true. Look back, look at Tifa, look at these other things. You know what I'm saying is true.
What's so brilliant about this scene is that we have the role of the unreliable narrator switched.
Ah,
Not
that's true.
just from Cloud to Sephiroth, but
Mm.
from Cloud to Tifa.
Yeah, that Tifa's the one who really knows what happened.
The turn, the reason the turn is so brilliant in Final Fantasy VII is because now we already accomplished the pledge. We built up Cloud as trustworthy.
Yeah.
We accomplished that. You believed what he said. Now we're going to work all the way up to the turn to get you to believe Tifa is trustworthy. Tifa's trustworthy.
She's missing context.
She was there too,
Yes.
remember?
Yeah,
She was there too, and she doubts.
right.
And she doesn't lie. Tifa is one of the heroes.
Of course.
And she's giving credence to what Sephiroth is saying.
Right.
When Sephiroth is saying this, she's trying to tell him to stop. No, don't say that.
Yeah,
no. You're gonna
Yeah.
damage his poor trauma ridden brain.
Mhm.
Please don't do that. He needs to be protected at all costs,
Yeah.
kind of thing, right? And when Cloud says, I don't believe anything Sephiroth says, of course I wouldn't do that. He's the villain. He's trying to manipulate me, obviously. But Tifa, he trusts, and he looks right at her and says, that's not right, is it? And she says, well, just give me a little long, and she
Yeah.
turns away.
There's more to the story. Yeah.
And
She's trying not to confirm it.
when Tifa confirms it,
Yeah.
he's right.
Right. And it's
He's
a
right.
twist. And it was a crazy twist because you can see the breadcrumbs and you're like, oh yeah, I guess so.
Everybody
I was not
telling
there.
this story is an unreliable narrator.
Yeah.
Either because
Yeah.
they have a false memory, like Cloud does about it,
Sure. Or they
So-
just didn't know
or they just didn't see all the context, like Tifa,
like who's behind the
or
helmet.
they're just lying, like Sephiroth.
Yes.
But all three of them are telling the wrong version of the story.
Yeah, that's true.
Each and every one of them is an unreliable narrator in their own way.
Mhm.
But first, we have to believe Cloud. Second, we have to believe Sephiroth. But in order to believe Sephiroth, we have to believe Tifa.
Yes, because
So
we wouldn't
have to
believe him
build
normally.
To building
That's
Tifa.
brilliant. That's brilliant. Yeah.
That's incredible layers of misdirection going on.
Mm.
There's so many. And there's so many little scenes that they put in there to where, again, when the turn happens and it's devastating, you start looking back at that trail and you go,
It leads here.
that's the only thing that makes sense.
Yes.
That's the only thing that makes sense.
Right.
Crap. That sucks.
It
I
does,
hate
especially
Man, this is horrible.
especially when your main character, who you thought was just the most hardcore guy ever, ends up basically like in a wheelchair. And you're like, I'm like, do I still want to play this game?
There couldn't be a worse belly of the whale moment than
his
your
head is
catatonic
spinning,
main character who has completely lost his mind
and
is
his physical
as
abilities
helpless as he can be.
Yes, so helpless.
Like
he's a child.
A total vegetable.
Yeah.
Not communicative at all.
Yeah.
Is just down for the count.
Yeah.
He is on the on the what do they call it in the ring, the
octagon?
mat, the octagon mat.
Yeah. No,
on the mat,
UFC.
knocked out, eyes rolled all the way back. We're counting down,
And
like
it's
hitting
like-
the ground. It's like there's no way he's getting up.
No,
It's
no.
over for him.
Yeah.
And
It's a great
Tifa
analogy.
stays.
Yeah.
And this whole
Because she's so trustworthy.
prestige
Yeah.
sequence is just about the most beautiful thing I've ever seen storytelling wise in a game.
Yeah.
She stays with him. They are like trauma bound.
Right.
They fall into the life stream and they're
Yes,
just
the
floating
earthquake.
down there.
Yep.
And it's just, we're gonna work through this.
Sure.
Doesn't
Trusting to
matter
fate or-
what the truth is. We're just gonna find out what the truth is.
Right.
And I'm gonna be right here supporting you and it's gonna be okay. And then you find out. There he was. He was in the truck. He
Yep.
was walking with them up the trail.
He was there.
He
Yeah.
was the one Sephiroth was actually talking to,
Yeah.
the little soldier, not Zach, who was
Yeah,
the
Zack.
stand-in, but you, this is your hometown, isn't it? You thought he was talking to the other soldier, but he was really talking to the Shinra grunt.
Yeah.
There's just all these little things where you just twist that context slightly in this
Yeah.
scene, this scene, this scene, this scene, this scene, and it's like, oh, he was talking to him. Oh, this was what was really going on. Oh, he was there. He was there all along.
Yeah.
He can be trusted. He did
Yes.
actually. He wasn't a clone like we were told.
Right.
All of these lies, mixed in with the truths, and all of that comes together just
Yeah.
so perfectly in one single moment. The helmet comes off because Sephiroth is standing there in front of Genova, and just a soldier runs through and just like stabs him or whatever. It's like, whoa,
Yeah,
this wasn't part of the story.
that was
What happened
crazy.
here?
Yeah.
It always cut away from that
Yes.
moment.
Yeah.
Cloud and Sephiroth are facing off in this like going back and forth.
Yep.
Oh, what happened?
You
I
don't
don't
know
know.
what
I have
happened.
no memory after that.
Yeah.
Even Barrett cast suspicion on that right away. Like, you don't remember what happened. Like, how is that possible?
Right.
That doesn't make sense, but whatever. So, and they just turns the little blue soldier, and that helmet comes off, and it just like everything flies together.
Yeah,
all the glue. It's a magical moment. And anytime I watch somebody playing this game for the first time get to that moment, and I see their mouth just open like, oh. It's just like, it reminds me of how that felt.
Yeah, it's magic.
It's so perfect. So perfectly executed. That's what made Final Fantasy VII special to me.
Yeah.
It's all of its other parts are great. Its music is amazing. It's got, fun characters, and, the Aerith death scene is really sad, and
Right.
all this. All the things people normally talk about when they talk about Final Fantasy VII. That's not what made the story work.
Right.
What made the story work was this moment.
Yeah.
That was what brought it all together and just fit perfectly. And it was just like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. So that's one of the best
That's cool.
examples. I think Star Wars is another one.
Star Wars is one. It's crazy. Just to go back to the Hansel and Gretel. I mean, you've got the trail leading all the way up there, and you look back and you say, here it is. It's all there. But what you didn't know is that it actually keeps going to somewhere else.
Yes.
So you could follow a trail to some really dark place and then be like, this is it. The everything this is the end of this is it. This is where the trail leads. And then not realize that no. If you go through that, you pick up the trail and it keeps going to somewhere else. Like a beautiful place. There's a glade in the forest that you missed because you stopped following the trail. You stopped halfway. I kind of want to liken this to some types of maybe more like conspiracy theory thinking, where it can seem very obvious that the trail, it all lines up. Everything leads here. And I've been very open about how many of these are totally true. But that doesn't mean that you hit reach the end. right? You might be just in the middle of the trail when you're looking back, saying everything leads here, wherever you happen to be standing, just to look back and see that everything leads to you. Then when the moon shows up, and then just assume that, oh, it all leads to me, right? This is it, right? Without realizing that, no, it keeps going. You actually keep walking, and then you'll find that it actually leads somewhere else.
Yeah.
And that's, once again, this is like Metal Gear Solid 2 as well. Like conspiracies, and video games try to craft good conspiracies. That's what they do.
Yeah.
The unreliable narrator is actually a conspirator.
Yes,
That's
right.
what it is.
Right.
It just reminds me of the conspiracy unmasked in The Lord of the Rings, right?
Yes.
But the people who are kind of leading you along into a certain place, wherever they want you to be, these are conspirators. And, sometimes you'll look back and see the trail, and you are at the end point. But sometimes you'll look back and see the trail because the unreliable narrator told you to look back and see the trail, and you won't realize that you're not actually at the end point yet, and you'll just assume that this is where it all stops.
Right.
So,
yeah. So getting back to Metal Gear here, Metal Gear has an insanely good plot twist that I'm not talking about. That
yes, it does.
follows this, and we could all break that down
Later on.
I want to talk a little bit more about this kind of other side thing.
Yeah.
And how
it
doesn't leave enough breadcrumbs, and it doesn't use very good sleight of hand in the English version. I know that there's a slight difference, well, not slight, major difference in the Japanese version in terms of the mystery that they're building up to is Solid Snake, the legendary mercenary, is now leading a group of terrorists. He's now turned. The guy who was the hero in the past has now turned and become a terrorist, and he's leading this terrorist group, and you are a new Foxhound agent going in, trying to uncover what's really going on there. They build this up by saying the leader of the terrorists claims to be Solid Snake, but that can't be true. He died in an incident 2 years ago, and his body was recovered.
Yeah.
So this is what you are told in the beginning, right? We're going to, again, break this down into prestige turn.
Sure.
Or sorry, pledge turn prestige.
Yeah.
So who are we meant to believe here? This is Roy Campbell, our buddy from Game 1, but maybe you haven't played Game 1.
Right.
Maybe this is just your first Metal Gear Solid game. He's your colonel. He's your superior. He's the one giving you the intelligence, giving you your objectives.
You almost have no choice but to do what he says and to trust him.
Yes. Basically, 100%, this is your superior officer. You have to do what they say.
Yeah.
But, well, let me hold off on that. So, like, that's who is supposed to be our unreliable narrator here regarding this, right? Is so a good character to pick, your superior officer, someone who you're trusting to give you good information to
the person who,
achieve your objective, the right choice.
He sent you on the mission,
right. I would say the turn in this case would probably be when Iroquois Pliskin shows up.
Yeah,
but it's hard to pin it to that.
That's pretty early
because of a couple of things. First of all, if you are playing this game for the first time and you've never played Metal Gear Solid before, and you answered the question at the beginning that says, have you played the first game? And you say no,
right,
then you have no idea who Solid Snake is and whatever. And so there could be some level of deception in this where you would not immediately question, wait a minute, that's him.
Right.
That's Snake right there. So to some level, in a very specific context, I could see this working as a deception, as a misdirection.
Right.
But not for anyone who has played Metal Gear Solid and said, yes, I have played Metal Gear Solid. And then you play as Snake in the tanker mission before going to Big Shell. So there's strange caveats, and this might not be the perfect example, but it will at least get the idea across, I think, the basic idea I'm trying to communicate, which is everybody who saw Pliskin knew that was Snake.
Yeah.
It's Snake's voice. It's Snake's face. He almost calls himself Solid Snake right away.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I'm talking about when I'm saying telegraphing.
Yeah, a little too much.
You don't have to have him say, my name is Pliskin. That's a telegraph.
Yeah.
He didn't even have to take his mask off.
Right, he didn't have to. Yeah.
There are ways to subtly leave a crumb, not like the whole sandwich. Right?
That's true.
Plop it right on your
That's pretty
fetching
funny.
lap,
Yeah.
like with the first thing the guy says to you.
Yeah. That's
So
pretty funny.
yeah, anyone who has played Metal Gear Solid and played the tanker mission, and he goes, "My name is Stop Myself Pliskin," you basically already know it.
Yeah.
That's not Pliskin, that's Snake. And then all of the other things that happened after that, which we talked about in our Metal Gear series. If you're not watching that now, this is an ongoing thing.
Yeah.
But last episode, we talked about how this is not fooling anybody.
Right.
There's like 4 or 5 things that all happen in that scene that telegraph this completely. There's no subtlety in what we're dropping here as breadcrumbs. Now, then you have like Solidus. When Solidus is revealed, this is supposed to be the Solid Snake who's leading the terrorists.
Yeah.
He has a different voice from
Different
Snake.
voice. He looks different.
He's old.
Yeah.
Like there's all of these ways in which it doesn't feel like it's him at all.
And it never felt that way to begin with, right? And many times has always been of the opinion of, oh, this can't be the real Snake.
Yeah. So it all leads up to the reveal. Snake comes in and have a big fight with Solidus, and he says, "No, that's not Solid Snake.
Yeah.
I'm actually Solid Snake. Sorry, I was lying to you all the time. Here's Otacon. He's flying the helicopter with me.
Yeah.
We're the ones. We're the actual team." And you're like, yeah, duh. Like we've all known that the whole time.
Right.
But then they go into explaining, well, what about this thing with Snake's body was found? And like, it can't be Snake. Snake is dead. And we know that because they recovered his body and they got his DNA and we know it's him. Well, turns out that's Liquid. Again, if you have not played Metal Gear Solid, you don't know who Liquid is.
Right, that's true.
This is meaningless to you.
Although this might be a reason why they introduce Ocelot's arm in the early sequence of Metal Gear.
Yeah, in the tanker mission, so you don't know that.
You're right.
If you haven't played the tanker part.
You're right.
So it's just badly structured and set up.
I think what you're saying is that even if you go into this blind in a way where the Snake thing is sort of believable to you at the beginning, they don't pay it off well at all because you don't even know who these people are. And if you do know who these people are, then you knew it was Snake to begin with. So it's almost like a failure either way.
Yes.
Whether you're new or experienced.
Yes.
You come into this game and they blew it.
This reveal does not feel satisfying as an explanation for the mystery.
Right.
Because it feels completely contrived. They tried to leave one breadcrumb about the Liquid thing. And that was the body that they recovered
was missing
an arm.
Yeah.
But you don't know that
unless
you have unless you played the tanker mission. And if you played the tanker mission, you know that that's Snake anyways.
Yeah. There's almost no way that they failed on both
This
fronts.
is a
That's crazy.
Terribly executed twist of events. And on top of it, it feels contrived because of how they explain that they went about planting Liquid's body.
That's right.
So at the end of the tanker mission, Snake is there floating in this sinking, the debris of this sinking ship as like Ocelot gets away with Metal Gear Ray.
Mm-hmm.
And we're supposed to think he sunk with it and died. But apparently what happened was either, because all they say is, we went and stole Liquid's body, frozen body, from, quote, some organization.
From some organization.
They don't even say the name of it. They don't even try to do what they do all the time in Metal Gear.
which is obfuscate with
billions
names.
of detailed explanations about the tiniest little things.
That's true.
This is how the guns work, and this is how this government does this, and here's every freaking detail and lavish detail to explain the conspiracy and how this works. And this is how the president, the failsafe of the president's nuclear football works with his like biometrics, and there's this and this and this and this step that has to go. There's just layers and layers of detail. In a game that does that constantly, he says, we stole Liquid's body from some organization. And then Snake comes in and says, and that's that. It's terrible.
Yeah, that's a rough
There's
one.
no excuse for this. Like it feels totally contrived for that reason. Oh, we just got a clone with the same DNA and we just planted his body in there, and that's we just explained that away.
Yeah, done.
You telegraph who Snake is the whole time. Multiple times in multiple ways. By calling himself Pliskin, he's telegraphing it. The cockroach telegraphs it. His voice, the fact that he doesn't want to respond to
he's not who he says he is.
He's clearly lying to you. Stillman calls him out for 2 ways in which he's not who he says he is. They telegraph it all the way through. He's not who he says he is. He's who my lying eyes are telling me he is. That's Solid Snake.
Right.
And it's clear that that's the case the whole way through. And any misdirection of trying to say, well, Solidus is the real one and this is some other guy, all falls flat because we have the wrong voice actor, not the wrong voice actor, but a different voice actor who doesn't sound. So there's no deception. It's badly executed.
Interesting.
So
it almost sounds like the best way that you can perform a twist is to twist twice.
Yeah. The turn and then the prestige.
To bring it back.
Otherwise, what's the quote? Let me go back to your original quote.
If you just
from John
twist
Cutter.
once, no one applauds. Right?
It's you don't really want to know. You want to be fooled, but you wouldn't clap yet because making something disappear isn't enough. You have to bring it back.
Yeah. So if in this moment they're like, oh, who you thought was Snake isn't Snake, boom, I guess the initial part is Snake is dead. So then their prestige is, well, but he's back. So they did do a 2 twist, but it doesn't make sense that way. The way I see it is just the whole game, as far as if somebody who's never played the first one goes, they're just playing. This is just how it is. And the twist only happens one time, which is all that is a subversion. It's just a subversion. It's not a true resonant twist until you then revert back to where it was before, except in a better way. And you can argue they do that if you include the tanker mission. You can argue that. They just didn't do it well. Because that second twist happens right away at the beginning of the first. If you play the tanker mission, you already know Snake's back. And you're like, oh, but you're not questioning, how did they do that? Like, it's not, you're not thinking that. You're just like, why are they pretending that this isn't Snake? That's all you're thinking the whole time. And then when the reveal happens 4 hours later, you're like,
of course.
There is no applaud.
Knew that.
You are not standing up and applauding in an empty room.
Yeah.
The end of the game has a great.
What Shy Guy is saying here is why I led off with the caveat that this might not be the greatest example ever. It's just to illustrate a point, but this might not fit perfectly into this is a bad plot twist, because it's very possible this was not meant to be a plot twist. This is why I said in our Metal Gear episode, I think you're supposed to know that this is Snake.
Right. But they still do the reveal though, even though you're supposed to know.
I think what the player might be meant to feel is that they're being manipulated and gaslit and everyone's lying to them all the time.
Right.
No one's telling me the truth.
That's a good point.
Everyone's just like expecting me to go through with this while lying to my face. And it's obvious they're lying to my face. And they're still convinced I'm going to do it anyway, which is something that leads into the major plot twist, which is done really well.
Which is very done well, yeah.
So it's very possible that there was no intention to actually deceive and reveal here, that you were meant to know all along. I'm being lied to, I'm being lied to, I'm being lied to, and they still expect me to do it anyways. They still expect me to do it as if I don't know. And I am going to do it anyways.
He does it. I was going to say,
because I have to, because I don't have a choice.
You don't have a choice.
Which is what we talked to with the Mr. X line.
Yeah.
So it might not be the perfect example to use, but it was one that I had played recently that I had as an example where if this was the intention, if the intention was to confuse you about the real identity of Snake, but he really is dead, if you were really supposed to feel confused and not sure, and this is a mystery, it wasn't well executed. But if the point is to make you feel like I'm doing what they tell me, even when I know they're lying to me, why am I doing this? Which could very well be the case. Then it's excellent. then it's great. Well done. You perfectly executed that. Well, love to hear your opinions, guys.
Man.
about some other
Your opinion, man.
about other elements that might be worth bringing up in terms of what makes a well-executed plot twist, and some examples, some of your favorites, I suppose, and why. We'll be looking for those in the comments, and appreciate you watching, appreciate you supporting. We'll see you here on Wednesday for some more Metal Gear Solid 2. Till then, peace out.